there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm going to be doing my October reading wrap-up part 1. This is for the first 2 weeks of October. I read a total of 15 books. Like always, I will link all these books down below, and since this will be kind of a longer video, let's hop right into it. The first book that I read this month was Sylka's Journey by Heather Morris. I got this book as an ARC off of NetGalley and it was published already on October 1st. This is a World War II historical fiction novel, and it's a companion to The Tattooist of Auschwitz, but you can definitely read it as a standalone if you didn't read that other book. This is about a woman named Sylka, and when she was 16 years old, she got sent to the concentration camp Auschwitz, and she endured some really terrible things there for about 3 years, and after 3 years, she got sent to a Russian work camp after the concentration camps were closed. She was considered to be collaborating with the enemies because she was being forced to have sex with the SS guards, and so she kind of gets punished for being raped for 3 years, and she gets sent to this work camp in Russia for the unforeseeable future, and her life seems pretty bleak because she ends up finding some kind of happiness working in the local hospital there. She becomes a nurse trainee because she's really smart, she has an aptitude for it, and she ends up becoming a nurse even though she was a prisoner. So this is Sylka's story and her life at this camp, as well as her life back at Auschwitz. We do see back and forth timelines, and she meets a couple of different girls at this work camp and she tries to help them, and Sylka is definitely the martyr. She's always sacrificing herself for others, and at times that personality trait of hers really grated on me, but I feel like Heather Morris really portrayed Sylka as the martyr, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. But I did really enjoy this World War II historical fiction novel, and I still ended up giving it 3.5 stars. The next book that I read is When She Returned by Lucinda Berry. I also got this as an ARC off of NetGalley, and it comes out on October 15th. And this is about a family where the mother named Kate, she went missing 11 years ago. She went to the supermarket and then never came home. Her car and her wallet and everything were just left into the parking lot. And now it's been 11 years and no body was found, and the husband kind of gave up hope that he would ever find his wife. And now he's raising their daughter together. She's I think like 16, and he's remarried another woman. But out of the blue, Kate is found across the country at a gas station and she has a 7-week-old baby. It really throws this family for a loop, and they have a lot of questions like where was Kate and what happened to her and why did she disappear 11 years earlier. And we learn that she was involved in a cult, and that's kind of where she disappeared to. And so we're seeing both past and present. We're seeing after Kate left and she got involved in this cult and the years that she was there. We're seeing through the eyes of the husband's new wife as well as the teenage daughter. And this one to me was so good. I really am interested in all things cults, and so this one really intrigued me. I read a previous book by Lucinda Berry called The Perfect Child, and I really liked it. And so if you are at all intrigued by cults and family dynamics, I think you guys would really enjoy this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I read is When Autumn Ends by Beth Renew, and this one I believe I was recommended to by Happily Ever Thoughts. I will link her channel down below. I think she had mentioned this one briefly and I'd never heard of it before, and it has very little ratings on Goodreads, and so I'm really happy she recommended it because I really enjoyed it. And this is about a woman named Jenna, and she's just lost her job in the publishing industry. She's engaged to be married, but she's really unsure about that engagement, and she's kind of lost overall with her life. And then out of the blue, someone in her life passes away and they leave her behind a really dilapidated, run-down bed and breakfast. So she decides to pick up her life and move to that small remote town and fix up this B&B in the hopes that it could be her new business. And so she starts staying at this inn that is right next door to the B&B she's fixing up, and she meets this man named Ethan who is staying in the room right next to her, and he is super troubled and brooding and grumpy, but she's really drawn to him, and they form this friendship, and he helps her fix up her bed and breakfast, and she kind of helps him work through some issues of his own. But what Jenna doesn't know is Ethan is a famous novelist, and he has a pretty dark past, and he's really in tough shape in regard to that. And it is their romance. It is really good, really emotional, and it has some kind of suspense elements to it as well that I found really fit into this story. So if you're looking for an unexpected Kindle Unlimited find, I would highly recommend this one. I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read is The Second Coming by Carrie Aarons. This is the first book in the Rogue Academy series, and this is a new adult college set romance, and it's about this really popular all-star soccer player named Jude, and everyone has known that he's going to become a pro his whole life because he's really good at soccer, and he is a super jerk. He hooks up with whoever he wants to, he's a jerk to whoever he wants to, and he gets away with a ton of shenanigans that he probably shouldn't. And he ends up becoming infatuated with this girl named Aria who works at the school. She's around his age, but she's not going to the school because she financially cannot afford to just go to college. And so she works 2 different jobs at the school, and he becomes kind of enamored with her and will not leave her alone. And it is their romance, and for some reason this one just didn't work for me. He kept calling Aria like not like other girls, and I just hate that kind of stigma that she's not like other girls, meaning that all other girls aren't good. I don't know, I just didn't really like it, and I didn't like how Jude was such a jerk to her. I like enemies to lovers, but this wasn't really enemies to lovers to me. I think he was just a cocky asshole, so I just didn't really like him at all. I don't know if I'll continue with the series because I just wasn't a fan, and I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. The next book that I read is Tear Me Apart by J.T. Ellison. I talked about this book way more in depth in my 5-star predictions follow-up vlog, and I already do have that vlog posted, so if you want to hear more about this book, I will link it down below, but I did end up giving this book 4 stars. The next book that I read is Park Avenue Player by V. Keeland and Penelope Ward, and this is their latest release that came out at the end of September, and this is about our hero and heroine named Hollis and Elodie, and they meet when they get in a car accident, a little fender bender, and they really get off on the wrong foot, and Elodie thinks that Hollis is a real jerk, and they never expect to see each other again. But when she leaves the accident and goes to her job interview, she is interviewing to be a nanny for this family, and in comes Hollis, and he is her prospective employer, and she's basically screwed, and he doesn't want to hire her, and he's left kind of high and dry because he is in desperate need of a nanny. He's recently taken custody of his niece, who I believe is like 12 or 13 years old, and he works a ton, so he doesn't have time to fully take care of her, and he's in desperate need of a nanny and ends up hiring Elodie against his better judgment. And they have this really funny banter. They get off on the wrong foot, but they end up having this attraction toward each other, but it's pretty taboo considering that he is her employer and she is nannying his niece, and the two of them really want different things. He wants just to hook up with someone and not really have a relationship. He wants to focus on his career, whereas Elodie, she is divorced and she's looking to get remarried and have a family. Even though they want completely different things in their lives, they cannot help but have this attraction, and of course their relationship becomes pretty steamy. Their chemistry was amazing, and their sexual chemistry was absolute fire. It was such a sexy book, so if you like those kind of books, I think you would love this one, and it is definitely another winner from this author duo. I gave this one 4.5 stars. The next book that I read is The Other Daughter by Shalini Boland. I got this one as an ARC off of NetGalley, and it comes out November 5th. And this is about a mother named Rachel. She has 2 small children. She has a boyfriend. She's pretty happy with her life. And Rachel meets this mom who is new to the area, and her kids are also in the same grades as hers. But then she meets this mom's oldest daughter, and she is a dead ringer for Rachel's missing daughter that disappeared, I think, like 9 years ago. And ever since, she's never told anyone that her daughter disappeared. She's really kept it on the down low. But now she's convinced that this lady's older daughter is her daughter, and she becomes completely obsessed with this family and completely obsessed with this daughter. And we're seeing back and forth when a little girl goes missing 9 years ago and currently when Rachel has this obsession. And this one was pretty good. It had a lot of twists and turns, but I really didn't like the ending, and it left me feeling dissatisfied with the story. I think the ending could have made it or broke it, and unfortunately in this instance it kind of was a letdown. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. The next book that I read is Happy Trail by Daisy Prescott, and this is the first book in the Park Rangers series, and I got this as an ARC from Social Butterfly PR, and I think this one comes out at the end of October. And this was such an enjoyable read, and it is set kind of in the same world as Penny Reid's books because the publisher of this book is Smarty Pants Romance, which is owned by Penny Reid. So if you like her books, I think you'd probably like this one as well. And this is about a woman named Olive who she's had 5 failed engagements, and so she really wants to make her current relationship work. So when her boyfriend, who is like an Instagram celebrity, recommends that they go on a hike on the Appalachian Trail, Olive agrees to, even though she is not athletic whatsoever. She ends up trekking through it and they go on this hike, but halfway through they break up and he ditches her on the mountain on the Appalachian Trail, and she kind of has to decide if she's going to continue alone or if she's going to give up and go home. And instead of facing her life back home, she decides to continue this really long trail all by herself. and she's kind of unprepared, but she wants to kind of prove everyone wrong. And when she gets to this certain point on the trail, I think it's over by Tennessee or something, she ends up hitting this really huge snowstorm, and she meets this park ranger named Jay, and he's trying to get her to safety. But unfortunately, he finds her a little too late and they cannot trek back to the ranger station. So they hide out together in this cabin in the woods, and they're alone together for several days. And they have this really funny banter. I found their relationship to be really humorous, and I liked both of our main characters a lot. I really liked Jay. And it is the romance between Jay and Olive. And of course, they come from completely different worlds. He is an outdoorsman, she is a city girl, and at the end of her hike, she's going to be going home and he's going to be a park ranger, and they kind of have to decide if they want to say goodbye. And this one was so good. It was really emotional towards the end, which I wasn't expecting. It had a lot of humor. The romance was really cute. It wasn't overly steamy, so if that isn't your thing, I think you would really like this one, and I would highly recommend it, and I can't wait to finish the series. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. The next book that I read is A Pizza My Heart by Tegan Hunter. This is the first book in the Slice series, and this is about a young woman named Ren, and she works at her dad's pizzeria named Slice. Ever since her mom died 4 years ago, she's been helping out with the business just to take a load off of her dad's shoulders, but she also is super busy because she has her own business as a hairdresser. And one day, her best friend named Foster, who left 4 years ago, he ends up back at Slice, and she's really surprised to see that he's come home. He left 4 years ago, they were best friends, and he kind of left for no reason and then ended up getting married in California. And now he's back home for good and divorced. And little does she know that Foster's been harboring feelings for her for years, and that is one of the reasons that he ended up leaving. And he is back, and he is determined to win over her heart. And it's a really good, sweet, and funny friends to lovers romance. And if you like pizza, I think you'd really like this one because it has lots of pizza references. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and I can't wait to continue this series. The next book that I read is Tattered by Devney Perry, and this is the first book in the Lark Cove series. It is about our hero and heroine named Logan and Thea, and 6 years ago the two of them hooked up, I believe, in New York City. Thea was a bartender and Logan was one of her patrons, and they ended up having a really steamy one-night stand, but they never exchanged last names and could never find each other again. And when Thea discovers that she ends up pregnant from that one-night stand, she really doesn't know how to reach him. She never got his name. And so she picks up her life when she's 6 months pregnant, and she moves in with a friend of hers all the way in Lark Cove, Montana, and she builds a life there. And now she has her daughter Charlie, who is almost 6 years old, and Thea owns a bar, and that's kind of what she's doing in Lark Cove. And unexpectedly, one day, Logan walks into Thea's bar, and she's basically freaking out because she hasn't seen him in years, and why would he be in Montana of all places? And all of a sudden, he learns that he has this child that he had no idea about. But it turns out that it was kind of a setup, that he was there for a business deal, and it was set up by Thea's friend to get him to go there. And so I think that the friend wanted them to get together and wanted him to know that he had a child. So Logan is trying to deal with this fact that he has this child, but he also has his business and his family back in New York City. And he really doesn't want to leave his life there, and Thea doesn't want to leave her life in Montana, so they're at this standstill of what to do. And they also still kind of have feelings for each other, so they're not only tackling co-parenting, but they're tackling this brand new relationship. And this was a really good romance. I really liked the start of this series. It is a small town romance, which you guys know I really like. The only thing I didn't like was there was this really weird suspense element to the book that didn't fit in, and I feel like it distracted from the story. So for that reason, I ended up giving it 4 stars, but I still really enjoyed it and cannot wait to finish the series. The next book that I read is Just Playin' by Shandy Boys, and this is a football romance. It's about a college student named Willow who is from Australia, and she is going to college in the US and doing kind of an exchange program. And she is not into sports whatsoever, but her roommate drags her to this football game for the 69ers, and she ends up meeting this pregnant lady at the game and ends up at her house after the game, and they become friends, and she ends up spending some time at this house, and she meets this girl's husband as well as the husband's best friend. And the best friend's name is Elvis, and her and Elvis have this really funny kind of interaction, and the two of them keep interacting in each other's lives just because they have mutual friends. What Willow doesn't know is that Elvis is actually a guy named Presley, and he is one of the star players on the 69ers, and she has no idea he plays football, who he is, because she doesn't keep up with the sport, and he doesn't bother telling her because in the past he's dated people who just cared about his fame, and he kind of wants to date someone who doesn't care about that. So he keeps it a secret from Willow, and they start dating and seeing each other. And I wanted so badly to love this because the premise was really cute, and there were some aspects I thought were really humorous, but overall I felt like the story was lacking, and there was just something about it I didn't like. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The next book that I read is Such a Perfect Wife by Kate White, and this one I had out from the library in physical form. And this is about a woman named Bailey Wiggins, and she is an investigative journalist for this online paper called Crime Beat, and she gets hired to start reporting on this new investigation that is going on at Lake George, New York. This mother named Shannon Blaine, she is married, she has 2 kids, and she ends up going on a run like normal, but she doesn't come home from her run. She goes missing, and now her family and everything are really concerned, like, what happened to her? Where is she? And so the whole town is now searching to find this woman and see if she left of her own volition or if someone hurt her. And Bailey Wiggins starts looking into the disappearance of this woman, and she kind of teams up with this other reporter to start investigating what happens. And her and this other reporter named Alice, they happen upon these 2 dead bodies inside a church, and it turns out that this 10-year-old cold case of 2 missing young women is linked to the disappearance of Shannon Blaine. Now they're thinking her disappearance and murder is related to a serial killer. And at first I didn't think I was going to like this one just because of how it was written. It was very info dumpy in regard to the investigative process, and it felt a little bit slow, but once everything started kicking in and I felt invested in the story, I was really enjoying it, and I really liked Bailey Wiggins as a main character. Even though this was book 8 in a series, I didn't feel lost whatsoever. There was not a ton of Bailey Wiggins' backstory, which I really appreciated, because sometimes in those detective series, there is a lot of backstory about the detective, and I'm not a fan of that. But luckily here, there wasn't a lot of that. So if that's usually your issue with detective kind of stories, I think you would still really like this one. And Bailey was not a detective, she was an investigative journalist, but of course she does her own type of sleuthing. And this one I found really enjoyable, and I would definitely read more by this author, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I read is Good Girls Lie by J.T. Ellison, and this one I got as an ARC off of NetGalley, and it comes out December 31st. And this is about an all-girls boarding school in Virginia called the Good School, and this new girl starts attending the school, and her name is Ash, and she's come all the way from England after her 2 parents have died. And she kind of needs a fresh start, and she decides to come to the good school. But we as readers know that Ash has some secrets, we just don't know what they are. And she comes to this school and she's having kind of a hard time. She feels kind of bullied, she feels left out, she feels like an outsider, but all of a sudden, even though she's a sophomore, she gets taken notice by the seniors and invited to this secret society, and she starts getting hazed. And then through those events, things start happening and women are found dead and possibly murdered. And it seems that it could be related to the sinister past of the good school, and Ash starts worrying that she could be in danger and that her secrets could get out. And this one for me had a lot of promise. It was very atmospheric. The only bummer for me is it seemed like a YA mystery. It definitely didn't seem like an adult book. I just felt like it wasn't thrilling or mysterious or gruesome enough. It just didn't have enough of what I was looking for. And so I ended up feeling just so unsatisfied by the story overall. And I guessed a couple of the major plot point twists, so I just felt left down by the end. And I ended up giving this one 3 stars. And the last book that I read was actually a really short novella, and that is One Hot Night by Casey Shea. And this one is only about 50 pages, and I got it for free off of Amazon. And it's a prequel to one of her firefighter novels. And we follow our 2 main characters named Cam and Jill, and they meet at this party, and Cam is a firefighter, and her and Cam meet, and they have a one-night stand together. It's super steamy, and we kind of just follow this one hot night that they have together. And I believe that the book is about these 2 people. So this is just an introduction to who they are, and I really did enjoy it, and I look forward to reading their story in the full-length novel. I couldn't give this like 5 stars or anything because short novellas just aren't really my thing, so I ended up giving it 4 stars. So those are all the books that I end up reading in the first half of October. I would love to hear if you've read any of these books and if you enjoyed them. Like I said, I will link them all down below, and I will see you guys on my next one. Bye!